As bad a week as you may have had last week, as bad a week as I may have had last week. Last week was still a blessed week under all subjects of the KOSM and Umbasa. Because why? The legend, the man, Petr Yan, was back in the win column, and it was a hell of a fight. So let's get into it. So they come out, Yan's using a long guard. Yan is trying to tease out these counter left hooks and these right calf kicks, these right low kicks. So he's using these front feints and back feints. Front feints, back feints, especially when he's got a longer guard. This because he's got quite a boxing stance and he's never really lined up, geared up to check the kicks like a Thai guy. So he's using these front feints and back feints to try and make Yadong fall short. And he does sometimes with that little pull back. He does get caught clean sometimes with that calf kick. As well, because it's early in the fight, that introductory kind of shellac people use a lot of the time, Yan was using it, is the calf kick. Not comfortable yet to exchange with hand combinations, so they're going for the calf kick. Now, Yan was using the calf kick, and Dong was standing in a much more solid kickboxing stance, a bit more Nicky Holskin, and he wasn't making a big attempt to move his leg out the way or check the low kicks. He was just taking them, but because he was so solid, he was always firing back with something. Block, well, not block, just taking it, firing back with a left hook, firing back with a catch and counter, which is a takedown, which is, we'll get onto the grappling exchanges a little bit, but that catch and counter. So Petr Yan, being as experienced as he is, he understands that the kick isn't finished when it lands. He gets back to his stance, and he's using that high guard, and an active high guard, because a still high guard is death, but an active high guard tied in with foot movement, trunk movement, it's very useful, and we'll get onto that later as well. Yan starts to use his long guard, but he doesn't use it normally. Like, some people just reach out. Some people reach their lead hand to their opponent's backhand. Some people just have it in front. He'll reach across, lead hand to his opponent's lead hand. This limits his lead hand. He can really kind of just pop a little jab across, or maybe cross hand trap and pull down. But what it does is it limits the opponent's lead hand. Yadong had a little bit more range to cover, because Petr Yan was giving up the ground just a little bit in this fight, giving up the ground just a little bit more, fighting on the back foot. It's one of the first Petr Yan fights where I can think where he's almost exclusively back foot, especially through round 2 and 3. He's super on the back foot in this fight, which gives him different opportunities. But what that cross hand trap does is it blocks the opponent's jab. So Yadong has to use his shorter weapons, like his left hook, his jab and his overhand, to cover more distance. But that jab's not there. Normally that jab is what you'd use to cover the distance in, but because it's not a threatening jab there, because it's obscured lead hand to lead hand, he doesn't really have that work to step in with the jab. He can't make the distance in an effective way, so he has to lead with his hooks and his overhands, where Yan's got his hands across, dips behind the lead shoulder on that side. Yan's got his hand here, he'll move out, kind of dip diagonally away and circle out to get away from the left hook. He still gets caught with some left hooks sometimes, especially as he throws a low kick. That became Yadong's chance to land. When he would throw the low kick, and as his head comes back to the center line, that's when Yadong would try and time this left hook. It's a really good shot, and he gets it like once or twice. So Yan is using that low kick. Sometimes Yan, they end up in a 50-50 where Yan lands back and they're going left hook for left hook. But that long guard and reaching across, it's shutting down quite a bit of Yadong's game. So Yadong's threatening shoots. The commentators were making a big deal about how much Yan was throwing his hips back each time. But that's kind of part of the stance. If he's a little bit closer, if he's a little bit more solid in his stance like Yan is, uses his hips to defend, he's going to have a bit more of a bite on throwing his hips back and his heads forward a little bit as Dong fakes these shots. If he was a bit more movement-based, more Adesanya-based, it'd be more like getting out of the range, Sean O'Malley style. It'd be getting out of the range entirely rather than throwing the hips straight back. But Yadong manages to time one of the low kicks, but catches just above the knee. So it manages to ride up. This one doesn't hit the calf, catches just above the knee. So it manages to ride up, slides up the leg, and then he hits that right straight and he's in on the single. Petr Yan's response a lot of the time to that single leg is he'll brace strong and hand fight beautifully a lot of the time, but if it starts to get that pipe run, he's getting turned, he'll base on his hands and quad pod. A bit of an issue for him in the Merab duel. It's really fighting a real big issue in the second Aljamain Sterling fight, but he's had a few adjustments to his quad pod and a few adjustments to that base that we're going to get into. But Yadong manages to get onto it, and he's so strong. He just looks incredibly strong on that grip. He's not doing the most eloquent mat returns, the most nuanced combinations, but that grip looks hell. So Yan is quad podding, but he's doing it a little bit different. he's not always on both hands. A lot of the time, he's got one hand on, and he's always got one hand pressuring. He's halfway up, he's got this hand pressuring. A lot of the time, he's keeping his elbow tight, and we see this a lot in the second and third round as Yudong gets a bit more tired. As this elbow's tight, say Yudong is on this side, he's reaching over, he keeps this elbow tight, and he blocks the grip. But he's always getting a bit of a hand fight on. Hand fight, hand fight, hand fight. Boom. It adds just a bit more pressure. Sometimes if you try and build up in both hands, you've got a stronger hand fight, but then he's got more options for the mat return. Boom. But he's got one hand here, always securing some, always putting a little bit of pressure, always gassing his arms just a little bit. A little bit like Jailton Almeida in the prelims. Has a full round of just mat return and Curtis Blades, finishes him, finishes the round, unlocks his grip, he looks at his hands like Morbo in Futurama, where he accidentally gets a little bit high. So he's looking at his hands like Morbo. Wow, they're so gassed. And then he gets sparked. But in this fight, you know, Yan can't break the grip with just that one hand. The problem is you're not as mobile because you're stuck on one base, and it's not as solid as two bases of support. He can't unlock the grip in this early round. So he's putting the pressure, he's getting the arms gassed, and then he goes to quad pod, Granby's out. Song Yudong kind of falls to his back, but he bellies down and follows in. Yan gets in the whizzer, and then he's back to hand fighting until he can peel that elbow. That whole scramble, it didn't unlock the grip, but it made a little bit of space for him to peel his elbow back and get that underhook back in. Round two, and for a passage... Let's go on. Round two, and for a passage of time, we see Yan start to get back to his high guard just a little bit, rather than the longer guard. This allows Song Yudong to sometimes enter into his combinations a little bit better, because he can throw this jab. It's not the most nuanced jab with loads of feints before it, like O'Malley was feinting, double feinting. Yudong was mainly just keeping it there and just chucking it from where it is. Still, super effective jab. But he was managing to get into his combinations a little bit better because Yan wasn't smothering lead hand to lead hand. But because Yan was active with his high guard, and what I mean is active, he was combining it with shoulder movement, sometimes dropping the hand to dip out the way completely, sometimes as well, all the time, it was combined with the feet movement. It was a lot more effective, whereas Yudong was a lot more predictable in his high guard, standing waiting to left hook or low kick back or jab and overhand. Another thing is that Yan was much more nuanced in his counters from the high guard. He'd have that left hook, he'd have the left hook body, he'd have the jab counter, he'd have certain spins, he'd have the low kick, he'd have the uppercut, a lot of counters. So he goes back to the long guard, opposite, well, lead hand to lead hand, but he's reaching across oppositely because it's a close stance matchup, blocking that jab again. Now, Yudong's getting a bit frustrated. He's trying to find ways to cover the distance in. So Yudong, sometimes he will dip his head under this lead hand, which set Yan up for the uppercut. The beautiful shot that he lands across in this fight, and he lands it to the body as well, Alexis Arguello style. Little weird thing with the guard. You would think if someone's so left hook focused like Yudong, Yan would hold his guard here by the side of his head, but Yan was holding it like he's holding a karaoke microphone a lot of the time. I don't know why this is. Maybe it's just he's cropping his uppercut and it helps him fire his uppercut much quicker than holding it in this classic location here, just by the side of his chin, slightly in front of his chin. Yudong's using his head movement to try and get under, and Yan's timing that uppercut. In one instance, he goes for an uppercut, and Yudong moves in underneath, kind of wavels, and then smashes a really good overhand. But he lands the overhand, and Petr Yan doesn't stand still and rely on that high guard. He gets to his bicycle again, and then he starts moving a bit more. Another thing is Young. That sounds like my new yogurt drink. Anyway, Yudong, he gets underneath, he goes overhand, then he gets underneath again, he shoots, and he manages to get round to Petr Yan's back. And we see this similar thing where he's using one hand to fight and the other hand more actively. This time it's not as a post because he's up against the fence. When he's up against the fence, this hand is fighting, just keeping the pressure, and this elbow is just working away, busy. Bam, bam, bam. Not the biggest shot, but you can't hold your head there all day and just take bang, 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 bang. And in terms of the exchange and judging, Petr Yan, much better score landing these elbows than Dong is just holding onto the grip. Boom, boom. And then he gets back through, peels that elbow back. Really nice. They get back into the striking exchanges. And then Yan, he's really finding timing with this uppercut. But we see something that Yuki Yoza used in kickboxing. But with the uppercut. Throwing this uppercut, same setup, but Yudong starts standing more upright because this uppercut's coming in. But the uppercut falls short. It just misses just in front of him. This is a really good time that Yan, he misses this uppercut, and then he'll reach across with this right leg, switching from orthodox to southpaw to trip that leg and then get the takedown. Really nice stuff. Throws it, and then he trips with the takedown. This is a good thing about the uppercut sometimes is there's certain shots like the liver shot, like the uppercut. Sometimes you can do it, but it's tricky to throw that and bring it back to your guard, especially against a really good left hooker like Song Yadong. To throw that, bring it back to the guard before they can land their counter. Sometimes it's easier to leave it out and move to something else. Sometimes that Tyson Fury style uppercut push. Sometimes that Petrosian Sichapor style uppercut grab knee. In this case, well, there's the Yuki Yosa one that's really nice, where he'll uppercut, he misses. If this lead leg's there, he'll just bordering on illegal in kickboxing, but he gets away with it. Trip the leg into lead high kick. In this case, Yan, he goes into that takedown. Round 3, and I'm on the edge of my seat because I think it's a round apiece, and I am praying to Umbasa, I'm praying to the KOSM, I'm praying to any other lord of the From Software lore verse. Maybe there's one in Elden Ring, I don't know. That's the only one I didn't complete. I'm praying to the Evergrace soundtrack that Yan can manage to secure this win. And then a crazy, crazy grappling sequence happens. Yan, it's the most convoluted elbow setup I've ever seen. Yan, he goes for this trip takedown, but because Yadong moves his leg back, Yan misses completely and falls onto his side. He's on his side and Yadong sprawled on him. Now, I don't know if his intention was a Granby or a leg lock. It's kind of that threat. He inverts on him. He spins underneath, trying to reach for that. Yadong gives a bit of space because he doesn't want to give up a leg lock or some kind of roll on the Granby. And Yan just uses that to get his guard back. From his guard, he rocks up and he's in on that head inside single leg and he rides up. Yadong is giving his hand in, so Yan pulls it across into a 2-on-1. He has a 2-on-1 in this left hand here. Yadong pummels it in underneath the right armpit, and in that moment, Yan, who's got his head position on the chin of Yadong, replaces his head position with his elbow. Boom. He's not pulling away, looking, I'm going to hit you with this elbow, swinging it. His head's on the chin, and then he just replaces that position, boom, with a sharp elbow. Most convoluted elbow setup I've ever seen in my life, but it was very, 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 very tasty. And then they're moving into the striking exchange, and this is something beautiful to see. It's Petr Yan giving up the back foot for almost all around. It's incredible. And what this does is he's mainly circling, orthodox, circling out to his right, this way. This sets up the spin. So first he hits a back kick. As he's spinning, he changes the orientation, gets across this lead hand line, changes, boom, back kick into the body. He goes up for the mix-up a little bit after. He mixes up, he's just hit the body, does the same spin, boom, to the head. Yadong has a solid guard. A little bit of heel probably gets through, but Yadong has a granite, concrete, billionaire, infinite wealth block of a head that I don't know if we're ever going to see him stopped, and if he does get stopped, it'll probably just crack one day and he's suddenly getting dropped left, right, and center. But incredible wheel kick, and then he starts to mix up with some back fists as well. Spin, boom, back fist. I think one causes a cut because it kind of catches here more around the elbow. That's probably really painful for both men. He's probably got a really sore elbow now, has Yan. But he's using that movement. Again, that movement off to the right. He ties it in with the stance switch. Boom, and then he's on right foot outside of Yadong's lead left foot, and he can just hit that cross, boom, a 1-2, cross to the body. Lots of good setups. Sometimes if he wants to hit it, he can step back in with the switching. Another good thing about Yan is when he switches to southpaw, he's always switching between this close guard, long guard, close guard, long guard, close guard, long guard, southpaw, elbow in, super tight, and then he throws his real left straight. I'm getting tongue-tied. My jaw is fucked. He throws his real left straight, pump, elbow tight, no giveaway. It lands so good because there's no tell at all. It's really hard to see. He barely even turns his knuckles over. He just keeps it vertical fist, McGregor Bushinger style. Vertical fist, very hard to see. And because his hand's always in different positions, his jab gives a different pace. This jab from the long guard gives a different pace. And then when he's southpaw, it gives a different pace, and then it has more of a solid impact when it lands. Bang, and then he can often go into his kick. Speaking of that, in the open stance moments of this fight, we didn't see the Petr Yan classic as much, being that rear hand slap. Boom, Rick James asks, what did the 5 fingers say to their face? Slap, and then left kick. We do see it from close stance, but he ties it with the switch. Slap, kick, and he often just closes the door with that cross. Really good idea. If you've got someone so set like Yadong, close the door with that cross after the kick, because he's probably he can't get his range a lot of the time to open up his own combinations, especially when that long guard is there, especially when Petr Yan's giving ground, especially when Petr Yan's giving ground. So, Yadong sometimes just concedes, waits for a kick to come in, because Petr Yan will be on one leg. He's like, that's the time I'm going to take him down. That's the time I'm going to get into it and start throwing these punches, throwing these kicks on return. Which Yadong does, but Petr Yan, often off that Rick James slap to kick, boom, closes the door after. There's more takedown attempts and there's more running the pipe from Yadong. And again, Petr Yan, this must be something he's been working on. As the pipe gets run, he'll go, boom, two hands, like a quad pod here. But aware, let's say his legs up this side, Yadong's going to try and reach around and connect the grip for that body lock, for that hip ride, whatever. He's keeping this hand super tight. This happens a few times. His hand's just super tight. As Yadong goes to reach, there's no chance that he gets that body lock. He's kind of tripodding, not quad podding. He's tripodding. Takes a bit more strength on this arm, on this shoulder, but he's got this other hand free just to keep his elbow tight, stop that grip coming around, and he manages to break it. One's like a really nice one. He breaks, comes up, does that same thing. As Yadong gets the underhook, he uses his head and replaces his head position with his elbow to land the strike. He's not pulling out and whacking an elbow in, he's just replacing, where's my head? Boom, the elbow's going to replace that position. Really nice stuff. And then we see Yan start to mix it up and really secure the fight with the takedown. He goes for that same trip takedown. He forces Yadong to the fence. He comes up. Again, he manages to secure a 2-on-1. 2-on-1 is quite rare in MMA. And people say, well, if you're going 2-on-1, he's just going to punch you with the other hand. But because Petr Yan's head position is always so good with that 2-on-1, very little risk. He's got him against the fence. The moment Yadong pummels in with this hand, boom, he replaces with the elbow, and then he uses that space to drop down from the moment of landing the elbow to dropping down to the takedown. That's really effective. Why he got this takedown, why he got so deep on it, is he didn't bang the elbow in, wait, okay, that was a good elbow, now shoot. It was bang the moment it lands, he pulls back in and he shoots. Yadong has incredibly strong hips, boom, on the front, and he's giving this pressure in. Really difficult to deal with. So, Yan, being clever, he doesn't just keep driving straight towards his hips. He's not going to match strength for strength in that range. So he circles around. And this is a classic takedown. If you watch Conor McGregor versus Max Holloway, a lot of the old SBG guys in that round, Gunnar Nelson, would use this takedown where they're driving to the fence, they're sprawling, so they drop the knee, boom, and circle around to get him down. He manages to hold the half guard nice and solid. He's got control on the opposite shoulder. When he loses the underhook fight on the upper body, like Yadong gets the left underhook, I believe, he gets that left underhook, he doesn't keep fighting on the upper body. Yadong's really powerful. By the time he's trying to re-secure that underhook, Yadong could be up. So he goes underhook on the leg, passes to side control, and rides the fight out and gets this decision. I'm super, super happy with this fight. It's a beautiful fight. There'll be absolutely loads I haven't even touched upon. Man. Yan back in the win column where he belongs.